The first thing her stepfather said as he steered her through the hallway to meet everyone was, "Fair warning, she came back from over there a bit rattled." He delivered it with his usual crooked grin and a shrug, the tone he used whenever he wanted a room to treat tension as a joke. The Whitfield family, Nathaniel's parents, his uncle, his younger sister, laughed on cue. The polite kind he always managed to pull out of people. Her sister Priya had already drifted toward the kitchen with her drink, not slowing down. Elena smiled anyway. She'd trained herself to do that in moments like this, not because it came naturally, but because not smiling always cost her more. "Good to meet you," she said, and that was the whole of her introduction. She'd been back for almost 5 years now, long enough that the family had quit asking her outright how she was doing, and switched to asking around it instead. Was she sleeping? Was she seeing someone? Had she thought about finding work again? Long enough that everyone had quietly agreed, without ever saying so aloud, that the gap between who she used to be and who she was now had a name. And that name was damage. They weren't entirely off base. She'd come home more guarded, more inward. Things that used to make her laugh didn't anymore. And she'd lost all tolerance for noise that didn't serve a purpose. Family gatherings wore her out. Not from grief exactly, but from the effort of performing okayness for people who found the real version of her inconvenient. Her stepfather wasn't a cruel man, she knew that. He handled anything uncomfortable by making light of it. And she was uncomfortable, so he made light of her. She came back rattled was just his way of preparing a room for her, a warning label that quietly shifted the blame for any awkwardness onto her, made it her leftover baggage to manage. She'd stopped correcting him around 2 Christmases back. Nathaniel Whitfield wasn't what she'd pictured. Priya had called him serious, and Elena had assumed that meant no sense of humor. It didn't. He was just a man who listened first and only spoke when he had something to say. He'd shaken her hand at the door before her stepfather's joke even started, before any of the introductions, and looked at her with an attention that didn't feel invasive, just steady. She didn't think much of it again until she found herself near the fireplace during a quiet stretch, watching the room, and she noticed he hadn't laughed. She'd registered the laughter around her the way she registered most things these days, quickly, filed away, forgotten. But the fact that he hadn't joined in stuck somewhere she wasn't expecting. He'd gone still, not stiff, not visibly bothered, just quiet, like someone working through something on the inside. His mother had laughed. His sister had laughed. He'd looked down for a second, then looked over at Elena, and she looked away first because she didn't want it to mean anything. The night went the way these nights always went. Food, small talk, the careful dance of people acting like they were getting acquainted. Her stepfather told his story about the lake house. Nathaniel's father told his about the kitchen remodel. Priya was practically glowing, pleased with how the evening was unfolding. Elena topped off her water and stood by the window, mostly invisible, mostly fine with that. It was her stepfather who brought it back around eventually, the way he always did, working his material until he found a fresh angle. He was telling the Whitfields about the hard stretch after she'd come home, how the whole family had needed time to adjust, how different she'd been. His voice went warm with the kind of fondness a man feels when he thinks he's being kind. "She's doing better now," he said, "but for a while it was rough. That's just what the war does to a person." The room made the expected sympathetic murmur, and Nathaniel set his glass down. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't move fast. He just stepped forward slightly from where he'd been standing near Priya, enough to insert himself into the conversation, and said, "Sir, forgive the interruption. I served with your daughter." Nobody in the room caught up right away. He didn't wait for them to. He kept going, plain and unhurried, no performance to it. He named the unit, the year, the night off the coast, when a call had to be made in under 3 minutes, with half the information they needed and men already in the water. "She's the one who gave the order," he said. "9 of us made it home because of that call. I was one of them." He wasn't putting on a show. That's what made it land the way it did. There was no build-up, no drama. He'd simply decided something true needed saying, and said it. The room fell into the particular silence of people revising their assumptions in real time. Her stepfather's mouth shut. He looked at Elena with an expression she'd never seen from him before. Not shame exactly, maybe it would never be shame, but something bordering on it, some recalculation happening behind his eyes. He started to speak, and didn't. Her sister had turned from the kitchen doorway, and was watching her now, not guilty, just watching, the way you look at someone when the picture you'd been carrying of them cracks, and you realize you'd gotten it wrong. Nathaniel's mother said something under her breath. Goodness. And his sister let out a slow breath. Elena looked over at Nathaniel. He gave her nothing dramatic, just a small nod, the kind that said, I wanted this room to know who you actually are. She held his gaze a second, then said quietly, just for him, Thank you. She stepped out to the back deck. The night air was sharp and clean, the yard dark, and she stood there a few minutes without really thinking about anything. She wasn't triumphant. She wasn't emotional either. She was just a woman standing outside in the cold, breathing. She went back in eventually and asked if anyone wanted more coffee. Nobody brought it up again. Her stepfather stayed quieter the rest of the night, not visibly humbled, not resolved, just quieter, the way someone gets when they're carrying something unfamiliar and haven't figured out where to set it down. Maybe he'd put it down eventually. Maybe he'd carry it differently from now on. She couldn't say. What she did know was that she'd spent 3 hours in that room, and for the first time since coming home, someone had finally introduced her the right way. Not how she would have chosen to introduce herself, but right. She drank her coffee, let the conversation move on around her, and didn't feel the need to pull it back. Some things don't need revisiting. They just need to have happened. Want me to also do a Dutch version, or put together the video, image prompts and thumbnail for this one?